excited for the week ahead, excited for the progress our team has made after the first 4 games. I thought we've gotten better every game, offensively and defensively. I thought I knew Sindarius and Dwayne for the most part, how they would react playing such drastic differences in the teams with short turns, but everything else was going to kind of an unknown. And after going back and reviewing the young guys and even PJ and Chris, because they're still young, we tend to forget that even though they played last year, they're just starting their sophomore years. I thought our team handled all that pretty well. And turnovers, I think Monmouth is a one game we had too many. I think we had 20 that game. What concerns me is not the amount of turnovers or the kind of turnovers. That's we got to be better there.
Frank, with Michigan, how did this series come about? Did you and John go back a ways? Had you been talking about this for a while?
Yeah, we've known each other forever. I mean, Coach hired a young man by the name of P.J. Brown, who played for me in high school and actually played at Furman for Larry Davis. And Coach hired P.J. and through P.J. and some of his old assistants, Jeff Neubauer and Matt Brown, we're all friends. And then I ended up coaching USA basketball with him, lived in a dorm room with him for 18 days. And I've got a lot of respect for Coach Beilein. I love watching his teams play. Haven't enjoyed it for the last 48 hours when you got to get ready to play them. But love watching his teams play. And but this summer, Andy Astley called me. He said, "Hey, Michigan we're looking for a home game." And Andy called me, said, "Hey, Michigan just posted on some website there that they need a high major home and home, and they're willing to travel." I called Coach right away, and we agreed to speak on the next day, and we did. And they had to move a game around, and we had to move some stuff around because we were trying to play. I could be wrong. We were trying to play tomorrow. But with the women's tournament going on, the facilities, game time, all those things kind of came into play. And so we were patient, and they were able to work out what they had to do, and so were we, and away we go.
I know they had the 5 starters returning, but they also had a lot of newcomers coming to the fold this year due to some people transferring. What have you seen on film from the new players?
They're just typical John Beilein team. They don't foul. They don't turn it over. They're so unselfish on offense. They don't take bad shots. They play through their structure. I'll say this, and you say John Beilein, you usually think 1-3-1 zone. They're pretty darn good man-to-man defense right now. I mean, from even last year and what I've seen of them early this year, their defense is pretty darn good. They've got size. They tried to play a little smaller last year. They were trying to play the kid Irving and Duncan Robinson at the 4, made them a little smaller. Teams tried to throw the ball inside. Now he's going 6'11", 6'10" at the 4 and 5, and not losing much skill, but he's got better rim protection. But they're just, his teams are so disciplined that he's coming in off the bench with guys that provide what's the word I'm looking for? There's no drop off on the defensive side. And that's your biggest thing. When you come in off the bench, you got to bring in energy and discipline. And I truly feel that guys coming in off the bench that don't provide that better be big-time scorers. But I like their team a lot. It's going to be a hard game for us. But I'm excited. That's why you schedule these kind of games.
Yeah, Coach, just following up on what you just said at the end there, talking about your excitement for the 2 games that you have this week with Michigan and Syracuse. What can you learn about your team in these 2 type of games? I know it's early in the season, but how important can these 2 games be as you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's La Tech, they're good. Holy Cross plays a different style that is hard to prepare for. All these are games that Monmouth, we don't their guard plays real good. Their big guy's pretty good too. He lost 30 pounds from last year. Now you go in and you got to play Michigan, who obviously was a second round NCAA team. You turn around and then play Syracuse, who's a Final Four team, and then Coach Boeheim, I think he's won a couple games in his career, goes out and says it's the best team he's had in a long, long, long time. So, you take them one at a time. You get excited for it. There's no guarantee that there's a win anywhere for them or us. I think they know that we're going to come out, we're going to play our brand of basketball. We're going to play hard and we're going to compete. And I know their teams are going to do the same. There's a reason John and Jim have been as successful as they've been. And selfishly as a coach, you get a chance to go up against two Hall of Famers, you tend not to sleep very good because you have a duty to their teams are going to be prepared. You have a duty to prepare your team with the same amount of responsibility. But that's all right. That's what makes it fun. That's the competition that as a player you want to go up against real good players, and from a coaching standpoint you want to do the same.
Now that you're permitted to discuss your four soon-to-be newcomers, the guys you signed, could you share a couple thoughts on each of them and what they'll bring to the table?
Yeah, I guess we'll start backwards. David Beatty is just I don't know how to word. He's all man, and he's coming at you every single play. He's playing downhill off the dribble. He's big. He's strong. He gets that ball in the paint anytime he wants to. He plays with an edge about him, a sense of confidence. He's got that Philly toughness that in basketball circles is so well respected, and extremely excited about him. Felipe Haas, you're talking about a young man who played for his country on their national team in his age group, and he's 6'10", can really, really, really shoot and pass. That does not mean that he does not play inside. He knows how to play inside. Great footwork, great hands, but he's an unbelievable passer and can really, really shoot the basketball. You put me on the spot here. I've been so zoned in on Michigan. Ibrahim is a young man that I saw him when he was at Arlington Country Day a couple years ago, and he was on a team that had a bunch of real good players. He was just they played 2-3 zone, and he played center, and he was a shot blocker, rebounder, and I was just amazed with his athleticism and his competitiveness. He ended up transferring to Miami Country Day, and the growth that he has shown as a player, the way he shoots it, his competitiveness has not changed. He has the ability to make like Chris Silva. What got him on the court right away was his competitiveness and his athleticism. Ibby has those same deals, but he can really, he's developed into a pretty good three-point shooter. That I think the sky's the limit for how good he can eventually become. And then Jason Cudd. Call me whatever. I love big guys. I think size. I grew up watching North Carolina basketball, and I remember Coach Smith every year had 5 of those guys. And you might get the first one in foul trouble, but here comes the next guy. And I think Jason's got a chance to, in our system, the way we utilize our bigs, how we play offensively and defensively, along with his growth. I've been here. This is year 5. And there's a guy behind you that didn't think I was going to make it past 3, but that's okay. You didn't think I was going to let you go. You ain't been here all preseason. You finally showed up. I had to get my little dig in there. But I've seen him go from a ninth grader to a senior, and I've seen how much better he's gotten with our weight program, the way our guys work in the weight room, his commitment to getting better. I think he's going to be real good in our system. So I'm real happy, and him and Felipe complement each other. You know, they both pass the ball. They both have really good hands, but they complement each other. You know, Felipe can really shoot it. You know, and then you got a kid like Ibby that brings a freakish athleticism along with skill, and then you got a guard that comes at you like David does. I really, and you complement that with the guys that are in place that are coming back. You know, I really like where we're at right now from a personnel standpoint.
Frank, a couple of questions. First, how are Cada and Blanton for this week?
Yeah, TeMarcus is a lot better. He's going to try and do some stuff today. You know, when it's those muscular things, you know, one thing is you roll an ankle or you know, dislocate your shoulder or your finger or whatever. That's a pain tolerance thing. I don't know if dislocating your shoulder is a pain tolerance, but if you separate it or whatever. When it's a muscular thing, you just don't know. You don't know how that body's going to react, how that, when you kind of engage those muscles, if they're going to, you know, so he's going to try some stuff today. And CD is cleared to practice today. So he will be full go today in practice. When does he play? I got no idea. But, he has done absolutely zero basketball since June. So we'll see.
And just looking at the international recruiting game as a whole, Frank, you've obviously had a lot of guys from a lot of different countries on the team. How do you get involved in that as a coach? Is there a scouting service for that, or do you? I think Brad Underwood might have been instrumental for it, but how did you kind of get involved in bringing a lot of kids from different countries to your teams?
Just meet people. You know, you meet people. It's all part of it. We're in a people business. Basketball is a game that's evolved worldwide. It's played in so many different countries at such a high level now. It's become popular in so many countries around the world. You know, that's why for everyone that wants to say that we kind of utilize our athletes at the collegiate level and we're taking advantage of them and all this other stuff, think about that. Those kids play in countries where they get paid to play, and they choose to come here and play in college basketball. That should kind of tell you a little bit about how broke our system is, the way some people want you to think, you know, that people actually turn down professional jobs to come play NCAA collegiate basketball. We must be doing something right when people choose to turn down $1 million jobs to come play in college instead. But it's just, you know, you work camps. You know, like for example, I did that coaching clinic in the Canary Islands this past summer. You do things like that. You meet people all over the world because of basketball. You know, you don't just meet them, shake their hands, and kick them to the curb. No, you actually engage in dialogue over the years, and before you know it, you know, there's someone there. Like, for example, Estonia, Mike Kotsar. I took those kids to play in Estonia 3 summers ago. I don't know, I'm getting old, Dave. When Ty and Sinderis went with me, whatever summer it was, I met a gentleman while I'm in Estonia. Well, that gentleman knows a dear friend of mine here in this country pretty good. We started communicating. Well, hey, Frank, kid from Estonia just went to a school in Wichita. You might want to go watch him. We went to watch him and said, wow, he's real good. Long story short, you know, what transpired as a handshake while we're playing in Estonia ended up in the recruitment of Mike Kotsar 3 years later. So you just meet people, you know. I know Gunnar thinks we're hermits that live in a cave and we just come out for games, but we actually kind of get around, and people do like us every once in a while.
Talk about Justin Mackey and his development, kind of how he impacts your team right now through the first few games.
Yeah, I'm actually real happy for Justin. I'm sure you would have asked him to write the book the way he thought it was going to be the day he graduated from high school, he probably would have written a little differently than what actually has transpired. But as he was changing the book, or he was actually living the way it's supposed to be written, he never ran away from it. And in a day and age where people just get up and leave and pout and complain and blame, I think he's handled that pretty good. I think he's handled waiting his turn and accepting where he needed to grow up in and embracing what this is all about. And he's actually done a heck of a job leading this year, which if you go back to his high school career is very similar. Very similar. You know, he was really an afterthought until his senior year in high school. That's when Coach Whipple and him finally met at the same place. And then he had a heck of a senior year, became the player of the year in the state, you know, and helped them to win a state championship. Very similar to how his high school career went, which I think is interesting. And now he's in college, and he's got to play better for us. He's going to be a major part of what we do this year. And he's getting the minutes, and he's improved. He's got the ability to put the ball in the basket here and there. You know, he's worked on shooting. He's got to make threes for us. I think he was 1 for 6 or something last game, and against Monmouth, I think he was the same, 1 for 5. You know, he's going to get opportunities, and our guys are passing the ball. He's got to make some shots for us.
Coach, just talk about your younger players and how you are expecting them to perform against some better competition now they got a feel for the collegiate game in these first 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's why the past 4 games, those young guys, I wanted to see how they handle things. You know, Gravitt hadn't made a shot in 2 weeks, and he got mad. I want to say it was the Monmouth game, and he came on the court and started shooting balls after the game, which I think is all nice and dandy if it's real. And he came back the next day and shot 1,000,000 balls more. Then guess what happens? He goes in the game, and the ball actually goes in the basket for him. You know, it's funny the way that works. And, you know, Raw Felder, same thing. He's getting more practices under his belt. Raw's going to eventually get to a place where he can consistently help us. You know, Kadeem, you know, him and Mike, they hadn't gotten a rebound in a month, and I was tired of talking about it. Guess what? Well, they ran for not rebounding the day before the SC State game. Well, they went after that ball every time it came off the rim. So I'm figuring out how they learn. They don't mind me screaming, but they don't like to run. So I'm not screaming. They will run. It's funny how that works for a guy that you guys think screams at everybody, and so now when they don't go rebound, they will run. That translates to them rebounding in games. That helps them as players, and it helps us as a team. They're responding to coaching. They're responding to challenges, which as a coach, that's what I believe in. That's where internal peer pressure. When you want to say I'm demanding, yes, I am. I hold everyone accountable and challenge them to the nth degree, because when you go play the game, the other team's not getting out of the way. The other team is not patting you on the back when you make a good play. The other team's going to try and knock your head off. And you got to be prepared for that moment. So we challenge our guys internally. We demand that our guys do a lot of things internally. They've responded to us, and now I've seen them respond to the other teams, and I've seen growth there. So I don't know. They might not tank it's the wrong word. They might just not play well Wednesday. But I'm going in very optimistic because of the way they've managed everything in the preseason and in the early, first 4 games of the year.
As you see your players this week, do you see any extra excitement out of them seeing Michigan and Syracuse coming on the schedule?
It's human nature, but that's when you hear me say about like internally, they don't bring excitement every day. Then I do yell. Then I do become the mean guy that Gunner says I am. It's we get an opportunity to play 30, 31 games a year. Not 100, not 82, not 162. We get 30, and if you're a real good team, you might get 35. That's it. If you can't be excited 35 times a year, there's something wrong with you. You're definitely not a competitor. So I've never been big on the A game, B game. You should be excited every time you take the court, especially when you play so few games. Late January, the season seems like it's long. But like I told the players, if you actually look at the season the right way, it's getting shorter, not longer. If you look at backwards, you think, oh, my God. But if you look forward, which is how life is, the next day, you got fewer games. So you should have even more excitement regardless of who's on the schedule.
Coach, to have this first 5 games at home and close out with the toughest team that you have on this first home stretch, what's that going to be like to face the Wolverines and then head out on the road after this? What are you going to learn about the team?
No time to celebrate or pout. Which is as a coach, that's what you kind of look for. I'm not. Once the game's over, it's over for me. I'm not a big believer that you come in the next day and you run them into the ground, or you come in and you give them a day off. I'm not a big believer in all that. You come in the next day and you're prepared to work. You have a commitment to each other for every day, not just on good days or against each other on bad days. No, you're committed to one another every single day. It's what we preach. It's what we've been preaching for 4 years. I got no idea what's going to happen Wednesday night. But unless something drastic happens and only one person understands who that is, and that's the man upstairs, we're getting on that plane and we're going to New York to try and play Syracuse on Saturday. So it's great. It's great early season stuff. These challenges, getting prepared, making your team have to go through the emotions of playing a big name opponent. National TV kind of deal, which goes back to the previous question. You're an athlete, especially a 20-year-old athlete, you understand. You get a little extra juiced up. But regardless of what happens, we got to get even more juiced up for the following game, regardless of who the opponent is, because it's the next game on the schedule. And so it's going to be fun.
To follow up on David's question from earlier, the accuracy and the reliability of information you initially get on international players, is it every bit as good as what you get from players over here? Has it gotten better over the years? Is it equatable now?
It's the same. You got to be careful. The game's different over there than here from a defensive standpoint. Here we teach to defend differently than we do over there. Kids over there, all over the world, they enter tracks. When they're a certain age, they no longer go to junior high and high school and the whole deal. They go for their core classes, and then they pick whatever they're going to do for the rest of the day. The kids that want to play basketball, they're sent to the club teams. So they're trained from the age of 7, 8, 9 on how to set a screen, how to use a screen, how to cut, how to move, how to play with an offense. And then they train in the same clubs with their pros from that area. So they understand basketball at a very young age, the structure of team basketball. Here, our grassroots system has gone from, you played a 20-game high school schedule. You played for guys like Bob Hurley and so forth, George Glemp and Carl, Williams and all that, and you really, really learned how to practice because you had 20 games, but you had 80 practices. To now one that we're evolving, our grassroots. Everyone wants to make AAU bad, and we're evolving. We're trying to figure out who we are at the grassroots level right now. Is the high school coach still influential? Not in recruitment, in kids' lives. Is the AAU coach influential in kids' lives? Is it a combination of both? Which one's more beneficial? There's so many moving parts at the grassroots level that guys don't practice as much anymore. The off seasons, those kids are in those clubs working on individual instruction, not with personal trainers, with a group of kids. So they're learning how to play, not one-on-one, but with other guys. The game is played with 5 people on the court. People have to be in the right places. Those kids abroad are being taught the structure of the game, not just a one-on-one dynamic. In our country right now, guys with the ball in their hands are real good. They're very good. Learning how to play without the ball in their hands, because we don't practice as much, has gotten a little has gotten different. And I think we continue to evolve at a grassroots level trying to figure that out. But internationally, to get back to your point, the scouting services, they exist worldwide. It's not just here. If you trust in scouting services, this would, I'm going to kind of, and I hope I don't take a shot at anyone here because I'm not into taking shots. I tell people what I think. But some of these, I get paid to evaluate players. And I go and I evaluate some guys, and I'll watch them 25 times. I'll spend the whole year just evaluating a player, and I can't make a decision after 25 times. Yet, some people can watch a kid 2 times and determine that they're the 120th best player in the country. How? How can you figure that one out on 2 observations? I think we can all figure out who the best 10, 15 players in the country are. I mean, heck, my 9-year-old can figure that one out. But after that, it gets complicated. And there's a lot of things that go into figure out who's that. It's the same way internationally. You know, if you just trust in recruiting services, you don't have an idea what those kids are about as people. You don't know what they're going to be like in a practice, in a learning environment, you know, how they are liked or disliked by the people around them, whether it be a teacher, a counselor, a coach, a family member, a neighbor. We have to do our jobs. We can gather information, but we still have to do our jobs.
Any more questions? Thanks, guys.